All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Here for the Health of It podcast. I'm Dr. Randy here with Dr. Tom, as always, and we are Columbia's hottest and fastest growing podcast. And I say that with two fellow podcast hosts here with me. And I knew when Dr. Tom threw on a button-down shirt today that this was going to be a real serious
And
episode.
I went glasses for the lawyers.
And glasses.
I just feel like it's a little more serious, a little more classy.
Yep.
I mean, I'm currently intimidated by the class.
There's a lot here. There's a lot going on in this room right now. So we have Brian and Luke Shealey. So thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate meeting fellow podcasters and smart, intelligent people with glasses that prove it.
Yep. We're going to dive in. I'm going to pull your microphones just real close. Perfect. All right. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, we're twins, law partners, so we get to work together on a daily basis. We share cases. We were just in a federal prison this morning, signing up a new case, a tough case. So we kind of work together. We're best friends, worst enemies, all that kind of stuff. But
cool.
So far, it's working. This is our 10th year in business. And, we've been slinging mud in the trial trenches for, 17 years, I think now. Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So you guys are the ones that go on trial, like you see on TV.
Closing arguments, opening arguments, all that stuff.
You're writing all that.
Luke once told a younger lawyer who was trying to argue with him about a case, have you read this case? And he says, I am the law. So, yeah, I mean, if that's any bit about
it happened to be my
how
case.
he feels about his...
But yeah, we do lots of trials. Some lawyers aren't willing to really commit emotionally and stress-wise to that, but it's kind of like going to prison for the first time, which you guys are familiar with.
Yeah.
You have to beat up somebody instantly and kind of lay down your marker. And then the idea is once you do that, they won't want to do that down the road. So for better or worse, it pays, in our opinion, to be good at doing trials. And if you can get a good result in the toughest of tough situations, and there you go. And sometimes you can't golf your way out of it. You can't, hem and haw.
Right.
And just the case might be too serious, but there's just no amount of kind of negotiating. It just has to be done in court. So that's when people call us.
So when you go into prison for the first time, is it true that you have to beat someone up? And if so...
Oh, yeah.
Tom's going to be in
What
trouble.
do I do?
What's Tom's move?
Take off your glasses and pray.
Start with don't wear those glasses.
I mean, there are some people that are better suited for prison than others.
Right.
We're just meeting. You might acquit yourself very well.
I got to learn some sort of ninja skills or something.
So sometimes you go see your client and they've been beat up or they've been in a fight. Is that a thing?
Totally.
All the time.
Teeth chipped, broken noses.
Really?
All kinds of stuff. I mean, yeah, it's bad.
And we're not advocating for that. We were making jokes, but it is.
Yeah. I always wonder if it's just in the movies or if it's really how it works.
It's really how it works, unfortunately. And federal prison is kind of a nicer, more well-regulated place than a lot of the state prisons. But even some of the county jails are terrible. Absolutely terrible.
They're pretty well organized from there's a boss of the prison, right?
The warden.
Yeah.
No, not even that.
Oh, you're talking about criminal.
I'm talking criminal.
Criminals.
It's called about your dorm lord.
Dorm lord.
Dorm lord. So we once represented a guy on a murder case in Broad River. This was probably 10 years ago. And he was doing life for murder. And he was the dorm lord. He was the king of the yard. So he would have all these people running things for him. He was making so much money. I mean, there's so many prisoners that make insane amounts of money doing all kinds of illegal stuff. But this was
It's like Shawshank Redemption, except instead of a sweet Morgan Freeman, it's like
Sammy. Our guy's Sammy. And so some guy didn't pay Sammy his dues. And so pretty certainly he stabbed and killed this guy.
Allegedly.
But he was such a dorm lord. He had all of the COs paid off. So when they came in, did their own, and this was a really bloody, gruesome scene. And when they came and searched Sammy's room, he had paid them all off, and they went and searched a different room that he told them to. This is right afterwards. He was ready to do it. And so our trial was basically all these really scared witnesses, but he had a crystal clean room, no blood on his sneakers, nothing.
No shanks.
no shanks, no nothing. And they turned over the dorm, and there was all this other stuff everywhere. And Sammy was sitting here all clean and innocent. And he was brought in for trial. And I mean,
well, it also didn't.
It was just.
It didn't hurt that at the time of the incident he was like huge and working out and lifting boulders.
Right.
So by the time of the trial, he had been in isolation on lockdown,
Supermax,
for 18 months and not allowed any recreation time. So he just withered away into the shell of this little old man. No way. And he had these glasses.
We Charlie Browned him. We put a Charlie Brown sweater on him. So all our murder clients get Charlie Brown sweaters.
Yeah, I was wondering about the look.
And he needed some glasses, and he sat there,
speaking in tongues the entire time.
So 12 months prior to that, he was this dorm lord, and then he was this little old man in trial, and he was sitting beside me and just saying inarticulate stuff. Just like he was suitcasing pins and taking stuff off the table. And
I would do steroids. If I was in jail, I'd do steroids first thing, I think.
You got to figure something
Yeah,
out.
Right?
tattoo,
I'm sure
you
they
gotta
got
go
him in
face
there.
tattoos, you got to do something.
Yep.
And I feel like you have to do something. I'd kill somebody day one. If I was in there for a long time.
How you're not connected. You don't get anything.
You got to get the Supermax, right? I'd rather get to Supermax where I'm by myself than
You have,
Yeah,
you have to
Jan
either
Bob.
be really scary or have a very useful skill or commodity.
Yeah.
So, whether that's looking pretty like yourself,
adjust. You can
or whether that's like,
Flexible.
being a good rider and like riding motion.
both these guys have the most perfect teeth I've ever seen. What is this? What is going on here?
Great.
I thought you guys are chiropractors, not dentists.
I don't know.
I once represented this guy who's only in prison for 6 months, like some young, guy who had never been. And I looked up his picture and I was like, oh, this is just kind of like a housekeeping. There's this charge that just needed to be run concurrent and no big deal. So I go to see him and his max out date's like right around the corner. And all of a sudden he's got these tattoos. This is probably like a PG podcast. So
You can. Well,
she always admonishes me.
Ideally.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's a lot of F-bombs.
he got literally prison tattoos on his eyelids of F full word U. So when he blinks, it says
No
F
way.
U.
Wow.
And then he got homicidal maniac tattooed the word like that.
Down
I'm like,
Down the
Side?
side of his face.
I'm like, Brad, I was like, you're only here for 6 months. Why did you do this? He's like, man, I had to fit in and like look tough. And I was like, we have to go in front of a judge, and I'm trying, and we're going in front of a particular judge who's very old school. I was like, you're not going to blink the entire time, and we're going to just say you're into tattoos, and that's your career. He was like, okay. So like, I was like, but he was one of those guys that was only there 6 months and thought he had to do something, but.
And did he get out?
Yeah,
Did the judge let him out?
we got the concurrent sentence. I basically glued his eyes open, and but it was just weird. And some people are relatively chill. We've had some clients describe prison as adult daycare.
Adult daycare.
Mm-hmm.
How's the food in there?
It's hit or miss.
It's like these guys are we're interviewing prisoners.
Well, most people will say it's better than your local jail, except for Saluda.
Saluda County Detention Center has the best county jail
Pasta
food
salad.
in the state.
Great pasta salad over
So
there.
most of the jails in the state of South Carolina are kind of headed up by the counties, and Saluda is very small. Like the size of your building is the detention center because they only have like 50 inmates in there at a time. We had this guy on an attempted murder trial, and we put a lot of pressure on it, and then it pled kind of in the middle of the trial, got the deal we wanted, and he asked the judge,
He was a rather portly gentleman. Anyway. He enjoyed his food.
Oh, he loved it. And he was like, man, can I serve my time at Saluda? And the judge was like, no, you got to go to the Department of Corrections. He's like, oh, but Mama Ruth's up here. She makes that chili.
She's like, it's fried chicken day.
And Thursday, and it's just, she brings it in herself. And oh, man. So like Saluda still rolls like that. They've got good food. The rest of it is kind of prefab stuff. It's not good at all.
And he was like, but if I go to prison, that's all right. I'll get all skinny and sexy.
Yeah, this guy was a major alcoholic, and he drank. We didn't realize this until after the trial, but he was on bond. Good for him. It was a stabbing case, and he would show up with like a giant Mountain Dew, whatever wakes you up in the morning, and he would go across the store and get it, and then he'd go to his car, and we thought he was just getting ready for coming to the courthouse, but he was filling it up with vodka. So he was sitting with us, and he was eating Jolly Ranchers the entire time too, I guess to cover the vodka. And he had to have that in him, or he wasn't going to get through the experience.
Yeah. And then once the judge locked him up as soon as the trial started, he kind of sobered up and was like, oh my God, the wheels are coming off.
So I guess tell us about your guys' story, how you guys, I mean, obviously grew up together. How did you end up wanting to be lawyers? And then why specifically criminal law? Or how did you guys end up criminal law?
Well, our parents are social workers, and we kind of, our lens was kind of through that perspective of trying to give back, help people. But I don't know, we don't have any lawyers in our family. It just, we kind of, this was our way to help people, but without being social workers, I guess.
Yeah, we got degrees in things like psychology and stuff like that.
Useless degrees.
Useless.
You were like, I'm good at reading.
Yeah,
Well,
I feel for people.
Half of our family, there's a bunch of doctors, and I think we went into college like, we could do that, and then we took like organic chemistry, and both failed, and we're like, ooh, no, we're not really wired for that. So we graduated, and then I think we screwed around, and we're just like, well, what can we do that helps people, but, our skills are what we perceive of our skills, which at the time was like swimming and keg stands. Like, what can we do to like help people? And so we ended up getting some jobs at law firms, and we're like, man, this is where stuff gets done. This is kind of the halls of power, and people are really moving and shaking. This would be cool. It can't hurt, right? Just take out like $150,000, $200,000 in student loans, and right? You're like 23. Like, what could go wrong? You're gonna be rich, right?
Work 95 hours a week.
Right? You're gonna be rich. It doesn't matter. So like, but then honestly, we both ended up going to school in Boston, and I staggered. I went like half a semester ahead of him, and he was working as a paralegal for a little bit, and I went to school. And then it was just about making a decision to come home and who's hiring, and just personality-wise, we wanted to be in front of juries, be in court, and the local public defender's office was hiring. And that just kind of, we fell in love with helping the little guy, really, and just...
Well, yeah, I mean, that was part of our growing up experience. We'd always were drawn to the kid that was getting picked on and try to, defend his, his person, I mean, there's always bullies, and so we hate bullies. We also have a very healthy
disrespect for authority.
Distrust, disrespect. So we've always loved to fight power, and it's sexy too. I mean, criminal defense, they don't make movies about tax lawyers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That would probably tank at the box office, but
sure.
So we like helping people, and also kind of...
It's tax season. What are you doing? Right. Coming to theaters near you.
So being twins, you guys just basically decided we got to do everything the same?
It's a struggle. I mean, we do like doing a lot of things together, and but now it's more of a team. I had a lot of real problems with my twin identity growing up. Luke didn't really care. Like, I got upset today because we both wear blue ties that had
basically the identical same tie.
I was like, Luke, I gotta go change. He's like, eh. And that's kind of always how he's been. I've been very sensitive to...
Who popped out first?
8 minutes.
Nice.
8 minutes, yeah.
So you just beat him up when you guys were kids?
Beat him up.
Yeah.
Beat him up.
And so you have facial hair. But is it always like one has to have facial hair, one doesn't, or do you guys grow beards at the same time?
We've kept this basic look for 15, 17,
bad cop, good cop,
20 years, and it's just to help. I mean, it's...
We actually had a judge used to call us good Shealey, bad Shealey. Judge Manning, who's recently retired of certain infamy, but very cool judge.
Yeah.
Now, believe it or not, the bad guy normally is clean shaven.
I'm the bad one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Luke's the bad Shealey for sure.
That makes sense. All right. Now, you guys mentioned judges. How important is it, and how does that work? Like, a judge just gets assigned to a case, or do you guys have any say in what judge will see your client?
It just depends. In federal court, a judge gets assigned to a case, but in state court, it's kind of a crapshoot. If you're going to plead somebody, you get a deal. You can kind of negotiate about when it works for my schedule. Maybe it just happens to be in front of a judge that's well known for doing nice things on pleas. But if it's a trial, depending on scheduling, sometimes it's just whoever's there. There's typically judge shopping is somewhat discouraged, but it happens, of course. Everybody's kind of angling to get in front of a judge that
Every good lawyer does
they think would be favorable. But sometimes it literally just comes down to scheduling. What are you doing that month? Certain counties sometimes only have like one trial judge a month. We had a bond setting in Berkeley last week for a guy who was in a wheelchair who just desperately had to get out. Just terrible health, amputee, recent heart attack. And we had scheduled a motion in Berkeley well in advance, but that judge just happened to be doing a trial the whole week. So the prosecutor was talking to me about, well, how's a month from now? I was like, this guy's going to die.
Right.
So I just kind of hounded the case until I finally got it scheduled in a neighboring county with a judge that was willing to listen. And he's getting out today. Yay. So, but sometimes it's just a total crapshoot. But in federal case, the judge gets assigned pretty early. So that's helpful.
Now, do you guys do research on the judge? Like, is that a thing that you want to, like, if you've never had the judge before, you will kind of want to know how they act and respond?
Yeah. I mean, some judges are notoriously bad or good at certain things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a judge named Judge Barber who's retired now, whose daughter was killed by a hit-and-run driver. So, like, it was understood that you do not take traffic cases in front of him or running from a blue light, hit and run. I mean, it just makes total sense. I mean, he'd hear your case, but
or if they have like a 20-year-old daughter, then some of your witnesses you might want to have in the same age range so that they.
Right.
And we know most of the judges we're in front of, but if we have a judge that's in some far part of the state that's coming to our area because they rotate, it's the old circuit system where at least the state level judges, they will come through from time to time, and we don't know it. We'll jump on our little listserv and start asking questions about.
What is this judge like on certain types of cases, and people provide data. So it's helpful.
So there's somebody. So have you seen the show Suits? Have you guys watched that?
I had a client say
I've started watching
something about Suits recently. Like, oh, you're just like that guy on Suits. I was like, is that good or is that bad? He's like, no, man, that's good. And I was like, all right.
Harvey?
Yeah, Harvey.
I don't know who. I have not seen the show.
I'm more Harvey.
Hopefully not
Who's
Lewis.
Lewis?
We need to find out.
I don't know. I've seen it. I've watched half of the first
Harvey's
season.
a-hole.
Yeah, but it's like he's a cool a-hole.
Yeah.
Definitely Harvey.
But so it's in that I feel like there was a lot of like high intensity stuff. Like you have to get a hold of this judge right away, or there's a big merger that someone's trying to do and someone did something shady underneath, so you're trying to get them to court. So I'm wondering, and then sometimes I'll talk to lawyers on the other end and they're like, oh no, things just move slowly kind of all the time. So I'm wondering if you're speeding into things or if it's like, oh, it's 3 weeks from now, I have plenty of time, or something's happening and I need to get to the judge tonight at 11 p.m.
It depends on the case and what your goals are. So, like, for example, the guy had to get out who was going to die. I mean, I emailed like 4 judges that week and was like, I got to get it, and like, until finally one popped her head up and said, I'll hear this case. But some cases, let's say your case isn't great and, time heals all wounds. Over the course of, we have a murder case that's 10 years old right now.
What?
10 years old in Darlington.
How's that work?
Because everybody's bad. Victims are bad. Everybody's bad. Cops retire. There's no real impetus. Co-defendant's already in prison. So sometimes a little bit of age on a case can give it the right pressure to kind of, let's just work this out. But
Have they been in prison for 10 years?
If your client's stuck in prison, then you have
That's
to push
a long
it.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
No, he's on bond the whole time, just kind of chilling, living his life.
You guys, he wasn't chilling initially. You guys might like this. So we got the call 10 years ago. Our family's vacationing together. So we're on the beach doing our thing at Edisto. And we get this call. And it's from his mom. And he's in the hospital because he's charged with murder. He's also been shot through the spine a bunch of times. So he's in
6 times. It's bad. Turns out it's bad for your spine.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's
6
So
times.
we go to where he is, intensive care, and sign a contract with mean, he's like holding it with his mouth, like signing the contract. But he wants us as his lawyers. He's shaking, he's moving his eyes, that kind of stuff. And we were just this was a friend of our mom's friend's housekeeper. It was a really loose connection. We're like, well, how's he going to pay us? And we just kind of signed it. We were just like, all right, we'll figure it out.
Well, just to prevent him from being interrogated in that
was true.
moment.
Like,
It was like
cops were
waiting at the door for him to become lucid enough.
So we get involved just to stop that, because Hannah, it's really important we have STFU Fridays, which go to our Instagram and you can understand what that means, but it's all about not saying things that are stupid to cops. So we signed him up just to prevent the cops from interrogating him, and then he hired us in full because while I was in the hospital, his house got set on fire. Boom!
Don't know who could have done that.
So the people that were involved in this shooting, the families, burned down his home. They got charged, and
No, they didn't.
they didn't.
Oh, the cops just looked the other way. We're like,
Okay. Well, so he had some insurance based off that, and then
Wow.
but then
So you got paid for it then?
yeah, I
eventually.
remember going out to his trailer, and his mama said, "Get all that money. Don't let him spend any of it. Get all that money." And he had all the hospital bed and all the machines, and he had all this kind of stuff, and he was fairly relaxed about his physical condition because he had been shot before, I believe. So
he's been shot a lot since.
He's been shot a lot since. So,
He's doing all right. I think he's a changed man. I think he's grown out of that phase of his life.
phase for sure.
Some people are just survivors.
Yeah.
That guy sounds like a survivor. So what percentage of your clients would you say have been shot at some point?
Punctured. How about stabbed as well?
Let's include stabbed.
Ooh.
Got to be like 85.
Does shot at we include that?
I think shot at would be included.
Well, half of our practice is devoted to very, very, very serious stuff like murder cases. And then the other half of our practice is smaller stuff that we don't do as much of. They probably have your average DUI case, your drug case, your breach of trust case, but probably half of those guys, people that have kind of living rough and grown up. Like the guy we saw today, I'm sure has been shot or stabbed for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now let's talk client privileges and some of the stuff that you guys hear. When you guys
That's good.
are you
I
guys
didn't
like
even think
priests
about that,
in a
but I
sense
love it.
where they're you want to know everything, right?
No.
Oh, you don't. So the more you guys know, it can hurt your client.
Yeah.
No way.
So we have to play this very
Well, we have.
Because you could get put up on the stand.
well.
It's not necessarily that. We would never disclose that, but we want to always reverse engineer our best defenses with our clients. And we tell them this. And the best way to be a really good criminal defense lawyer from a client evidence standpoint is I'm not just going to meet them for the first day like we did today and be like, hey, buddy, so you got this massive 8-count drug conspiracy. Let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about it. No,
Yeah, how'd you do it?
So what we always say, and some guys, especially on a body case, are dying to tell us stuff that they think in their mind is going to help.
Right.
And we're like, no, don't talk to us.
kidding.
Not
See, I
until I
didn't
get
know
the
that.
evidence. Not until I get the evidence. And then because we can never put up a client to lie. We've got ethics. We can't, but I know clients have lied to me.
Yeah.
But I can never put them up on the stand
Knowing
knowing they're lying
they're
to me.
lying.
Told
I can't do that. So
So you guys
we'll get the
wait.
evidence and we'll say,
stay
here are the 2 or 3 best defenses for you based on the evidence. I'm sure one of these is the way to go. Oh, I sound great like that.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh yeah, Mr. Shealey, it's door number 3. That's the one I want to tell you all these years. Fine, good.
Yeah.
But now you haven't told me a billion different lies in between where I think you're lying, and I can't put you
Gotcha.
up to that
Right.
self-defense.
So you guys
analysis.
get all the evidence first to
Yes.
then see, I guess, the direction you want to take the case. Now, when new evidence gets provided, then is it kind of screw you?
That is why sometimes we can't know the full story until honestly like a week or 2 before trial. I'll give you a good example. So we did a murder case two months ago now. It was a young lady that it was self-defense. Her stepfather was trying to sexually assault her to get back at her mom who broke up with her. And she would buy drugs from this guy and hang out. And for years, she had not personally had any problems, but she had seen this guy be a monster to other people. Really violent, bad, like local drug dealer. And so, and we kind of got involved in the case late. We were helping out some other lawyers already working it. And basically, it was the week before trial. And we just got a bunch of cell phone records that were really kind of like, so we had the cell phone records, we had the text messages and all this kind of stuff, but we did not have the full phone extraction. Like they can totally, anything you've deleted on your cell phone, anything you've searched, anything.
Randy's little nudie files that he has.
Fully extracted. Right. Even if you think you've
thousands of pictures of myself, someone has to scroll through.
Right.
Here's another one.
So we always knew that she shot this guy with his own gun in his own home, and then she fled. She said she left his gun in the house, and then a kerosene heater was neglected over 2 hours of this guy being dead, and it caught the whole house on fire. And so she always told law enforcement, he attacked me, and I ran. I just left the gun there. And so we're like, that was the story we were developing and talking about how she defended herself as he was throwing her around the house and trying to like pull her pants off. And so then the Wednesday before we were starting trial on Monday, we had just gotten this cell phone extraction from the state because they're constantly like slow rolling discovery. We just had an attempted murder trial continued last week because of a discovery abuses. But anyway, so we just got the phone records and we're prepping our client with her like second really meaningful, like here's what happened, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the law of self-defense. And then we got an emergency call from our digital forensic expert, Chris. He's like, guys, what are you doing? Talking to our lady. Get her out of there. Come talk to me. And he's like, have you talked with her about the gun yet? And we were like, we're just getting to that, but we think we kind of know. And he's like, well, she's trying to sell it on Instagram. And she deleted it, but the file's still there. I could definitely see it. And the state has her phone, so they've got it.
And they're going to ambush her with that at trial.
So that was 10:30 on a Wednesday morning, and I instantly said, all right, Chris. And we went in there, and we were like, you tried to sell the phone.
We're like, young lady, where's
the gun? She's like, well, I was going to talk to you guys about that. And I was like, all right. And so what'd you do with the gun? Because it could have matched so many things. It could help to corroborate her story. What kind of gun? And she's like, it's in a lake off Leesburg Road. And so by noon, Luke and I were in the lake on Leesburg Road.
You two were in the lake?
We got pictures. We were in the lake on Leesburg Road, like wading in, trying to find this gun, which we couldn't find because it had been 2 years since
I was like a foot from that gun.
Yeah.
You were close.
It had been 2 years since she tossed it.
You guys had metal detect. You just put on your swim trunks and metal detectors.
We had on like waders and we
just went out there, and so we couldn't find it.
So we hired our scuba diver.
We hired our scuba diver.
Like here, Hannah's got a picture.
Insane.
Oh, that's actually in a lake.
It's not even shallow. Is it shallow? That doesn't even seem that shallow.
It's not shallow, no.
So, and then we hired a scuba diver by that Friday, and he found it.
He found it in like 40 minutes.
And we found the gun, and then the rules basically, so then we've got an actual gun used in a murder. So the rules basically say that we can briefly inspect it, and then of course we have to turn it over to law enforcement. So the Friday then before the trial,
and it matched her description perfectly.
Right.
So it wasn't like she was just trying to help herself or screw the case in some way. I mean, at that point we knew they were going to try to bust her with her trying to sell it because it always seems bad when you're trying to get rid of something.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that was important for us is because they wanted to say that this was a killing full of malice. She was trying to protect her mama. She always went there with the mindset to kill this guy as opposed to using his own weapon and taking it from him as he was trying to wrestle her to the ground. And so the bullet they pulled out of this guy, it had the same characteristics as being fired from a whole class of guns, including this gun. And so then when we got it and we turned it right over to law enforcement, they came by and they were all like, what? And we told the prosecutor, and he was like, what is this mysterious gun?
We're like, go test it.
And then it became very interesting in the trial because they sat on it and refused to test it because they didn't want to help strengthen our case.
Right.
But then they looked like they were refusing to test evidence that we were bringing to them. So,
gosh, there's a lot of thinking in this, huh?
Oh, and swimming.
Look, and swimming. You guys are good swimmers, as you mentioned. Though
it's helpful.
Former lifeguard, you know.
What was the verdict? How did it turn out?
It was a guilty because STFU Fridays. So before we got into this case, we got kind of brought in as hired guns. She got interrogated for 3.5 hours by law enforcement, really well-trained law enforcement to give. Yeah. And she lied. She was like,
she kept changing her story.
First, she wasn't there. This is a poor black woman who had never been given a shot at anything.
It's just like trying to keep your hand out of the cookie jar. I wasn't there.
So, and then as they kind of made
young,
her,
right? Like in
she was
20s?
24,
Yeah.
22 at the time. So she gave about 10 different versions of it before she finally broke down and came clean with an investigator who was trying to work her, but made her feel like this. I mean, there were 4 investigators.
And they're trained in a very particular way to, if you're denying, they just want you to get you there. And once they get you to commit, let the lawyers deal with it. So they're like, we know you were there. And they're allowed to lie to you too. They can tell you real evidence about why you were there, and they can just make up things.
That's something that's mind-blowing to me, because I've been told that before. They can say anything they want, full lies.
Yep. The only thing they can't do is like threaten you with a death penalty or something. But they can totally lie and be like, we found your DNA at the door, and they may not have.
Or on a co-defendant case, hey, your buddy next door is telling us everything. He's rolling all over you. He's told us everything. You just sit there quiet. You just sit there quiet and then take your life sentence.
See how that turns out.
We already know what happened, and that's a real high-level tactic.
What's is the best thing to do? Just say 0 until you guys show up.
Yes.
So just you don't have to
Shut
respond
the
at all.
F up.
Just
What
nothing.
is the way all week long.
Maybe
I get
tell
calls.
a few jokes. Maybe tell a few jokes though.
Maybe
Lighten the mood a little bit.
But it's just like remain silent. Remain silent. Silent.
Because, I mean, the odds that somebody without a lawyer is going to provide a perfect, plausible defense. And to police, most of them are very black and white. Either it wasn't you, and if you can come in with that evidence all by your lonesome and survive the barrage of interrogations, and more power for you. That's like 1 in 1,000. Or, I mean, they don't care about self-defense. Like,
Right.
I don't want to talk about the active case, but this guy in the wheelchair, it's 100% self-defense. But like, in order for them to not charge you, you'd have to be like in your home, asleep in your bed, and like it's like straight from The Shining. Like, here's Johnny. Like, some criminal has to be coming through your door, and you shoot once through the door while on the phone with 911, and maybe they won't charge you if it's that clear cut. But if there's any grayness or fluidness in there, you're going to get charged because it's political. Because chiefs of police and sheriffs get elected by being tough on crime.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm charging everybody unless it's just 100% obvious.
I thought if they came in your house, period, you could just zap them.
You can.
And then, so they charge you, but you're going to pretty much get off because they entered your house.
But it has to be, for police not to charge you, it has to be so overwhelmingly obvious. I mean, we've had...
Like, if their body's dead in your living room, isn't that obvious that they were in there? Or maybe somebody would drag them in.
Well, if they were invited there and police don't know, I mean, police want to see a home invasion to not charge you. They want to see like your door being kicked in.
Stranger danger.
Right. They want to see they want to see Hannah by her bed waiting as like loose criminal, the guy from Pennsylvania who climbed his way out, makes his way down to South Carolina, and she pops him one as he comes on her window. That is easy enough where they can be like, all right, no charge.
But
Okay, sounds good.
They don't like domestic stuff where there's, let's say, we've represented, here's a fact pattern. A lady with no record has an estranged, abusive father of her children who is on trespass notice with a restraining order, and he comes over because his children are like his property. And he wants to go mark his territory and come over and beat on his own lady a little bit. And so he comes over and he gets drunk and he does that, beats on his old lady, our client, and she calls the cops. He rips the phone out of the wall. Cops show up. She's been beaten up. He's hiding in the back. And he says, if I go to jail tonight, you're going to die. And so she says, I'm sorry. He's gone. It was just an argument. And they say, yeah. We're going to arrest you next time we come back here.
Although they note she looks scared and disheveled.
Disheveled. Her hair's all over the place, and she's got tears everywhere. Door closed. He comes out the back and starts choking her in her own kitchen. And she's got no phone, and it's a struggle to the death on the floor of her kitchen. Drain rack falls over in the struggle, and there's a blade right there, and she grabs it and plunges it one time into her as the life is being taken from her. That's the case that we had. Mm-hmm. And then she runs next door because she's freaked out, calls the cops on a cell phone, comes back in, and the ambulance gets on, and the EMTs are walking her through chest compressions and try to keep this guy alive until they come, and his head is in her lap. Yeah, it's her father of her children. He was going to kill her. And
She was very vigorously prosecuted.
vigorously.
Really?
No
Yeah.
way. Wow.
Yep. So I mean and again that we started as public defenders. So that's a public defender case. So she didn't have any money. She didn't have any privilege. She didn't have anything. And I remember when we started this firm 10 years ago, we took that case pro bono because we felt so passionate about it. And we got an offer like the day of trial for 5 years on that case. Murder carries 30 to life. And so we got an offer of involuntary manslaughter.
It was straight up.
Straight up to 5 years. And I just remember her words. She was just like, listen, because we were fired up. We're like, no, you can't take that. But it's always her choice. She was like, listen, I appreciate you guys. I'd really appreciate the fight, but like, my babies will still be babies. And this is a lady that had never been given anything ever in her life. So we took that, and she got 5.
So she went to jail for 5 years.
for
Instead of
saving
30.
her life, right?
Dang.
So I mean, it's
Holy shit.
so that's kind of thing where I mean, and there's evidence that he like forced his way into her home because she got him out for a little bit, and then he like forced his way back in. So just outrageous stuff.
So it's just that it would have been at the jury's, like in the hands of the jury at that point, if you were to press in to try to get her off completely. She just didn't want to.
We felt confident about that case. You never know,
Yeah,
but she was risk adverse. So she was like, I don't want to do a trial. Thank you
Right.
for all your work.
Just scared,
And then she's out.
Are there cases like that? I mean, I feel like you guys have been doing this 10 years, you said?
17 years.
17 years? Been brothers for 10 years?
8 years.
I don't know where I got 10 from.
Adopted this guy.
We've had our firm for 10 years.
But the amount of cases that you guys have had, do you still like have nightmares, or you just think about certain cases a lot where you're just like,
Oh yeah.
Every night.
how do you deal? Like, how, do you guys go to therapy? What's the?
We were talking about that this morning.
We have gone to therapy. I've had an ulcer that I've named a specific client before. It was a juvenile charge of murder. And we do a bunch of pro bono cases, which we really shouldn't, because it just kills us.
We did three body cases this year for free, which was just
Don't advertise that.
dumb on our part.
But it's tough, and the legal profession is one that, of course, is well known for alcoholism and suicide. And we had one of our colleagues pass away just last week, who was a criminal defense lawyer, very well respected, well known. It wasn't anything like that. It was natural causes, apparently. But I mean, you don't know the toll it takes on your body. So this being a podcast about health and wellness and things like that, I mean, we kind of joked on the ride over here. I mean, you just internalize it. The problem is, if you're a criminal defense lawyer, which we predominantly are, if you don't care, then you're not doing a good job for your client. So you have to care, and it shows. But when you do care, you just absorb all that stress and guilt and trauma. Some of these people are our good friends. You know, by the time we get through with representing them, but they're doing life in prison, or they're doing 35 years.
I can think of 3 murder clients right now that we see every other month or so: Tyshawn, Sherman, and Adrian, that are like in our lives.
Like, you go to prison and see them?
They didn't go to prison.
They're out.
We handle their cases. But like, they'll come back in.
We win a lot too now. It's not all losses.
Oh yeah. So these are winning cases, and one in particular is in litigation because the cops just screwed it up so badly. But and they'll come back in and they'll just pop in, say hello, or refer us a car wreck. So we have lawyers in our building that do civil stuff too. But
we're still working on the answer to that question of how do you do it and not suffer.
We asked that question to one of our mentors, John Delgado, who's had a great career in Colombia and throughout the state. And he's kind of at the end of it, and he's got this great mountain house. And he pretty much stays in the mountains and doesn't really come down except for the big case from time to time. But we asked him about that. Like, how do you do it? And he basically, not being super religious, he said, well, he's spiritual, but he's not like church every Sunday kind of guy. But he's like, I will go to a church and listen to the choir and just listen to, especially any kind of choir that has young people in it. And, you know, the beauty of the music and the hope and the young people's eyes, he's like, that lifts me up. And that I'll take that in and I'll think about all the good things in the world when I've just been, had my teeth kicked in for a month in a terrible trial. A lot of our really good friends do death penalty work too. Talk about an experience where
yeah,
that's trauma. Like all of our, and we have two of our good friends in particular that absolutely have trauma from that. And just can't, just seeing that stuff and trying to.
Got to be a little autistic, I think, to just deal with that, right?
But I in theory, that'd be great if you could just
zero
look at it away,
Compartmentalize
just-
it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the really good lawyers that do what we do are like the ones that can't look away from the trauma. They absorb it. So it's always unhealthy.
Yeah.
How's that for an answer? It's just unhealthy.
Pretty unhealthy.
Yeah.
Well, I visualize the mental health issues not just in the legal firm. You're like in general is insane right now. So are you seeing a lot of your clients and you're like, oh, this person just has terrible depression, terrible anxiety. They're on all these different meds. They're trying to basically self-medicate themselves with whatever, and then all these bad things happen.
All the time.
Yes. See a lot of that. A lot of people, and people come see us at their worst times in their lives. And that's across the board, basically. And so, we find people at their lowest. And, I do feel positive, though, when we meet somebody that's having a really hard time and they're seeking good lawyers, and then they feel really comfortable with us. And then they say, I feel so much better right now after this meeting. And that always makes me feel good. But again, we've taken on a great weighty responsibility. And so, we're trying to make them feel better, but, we're thinking about, how to plot their case in a way that's going to save their bacon.
I want to know about your guys' coffee and sleep regimen.
Lots of coffee.
Not enough sleep. But we try to get decent sleep. Coffee is, about 3 cups in the morning.
3, I'm at 6.
Well, before I leave the house.
Oh, yeah. And then we go.
And then you got to hit Starbucks or Drip.
On the way.
And then there's a midday coffee. And then there's no nighttime coffee unless we're working late.
I get up really early,
What time you getting up?
4:45.
No kidding.
I'll text Hannah and email her at 5:30. I'm sure she's not even up yet. I'm thinking
What
about
are you doing? Yoga?
I try to exercise, intermittently try to exercise. But, in theory, I've gotten up in enough time to really exercise. But sometimes if I'm stressed, I'll just plot and plan and kind of get my day or week or month organized and think ideas and stuff like that. So
Nice.
We try to get as much sleep as possible. 7 hours, got to get that. We're not the types that are running on 3 hours
yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Just
not
can't function.
Not crazy.
So you're going to bed at what time then? 9?
I'd like to be in bed reading a book at 9. Yes.
I'm more of a 10 o'clock guy. My phone's on silent, so I'm not really doing anything. I'll
Yeah.
read or watch a movie. Got my dog all cuddled up. We are not late owls.
6 cups? So 6 cups of coffee a day, you would say. Maybe 8?
Gotta be. Yeah.
9.
6 before 10, and then maybe an afternoon cup.
A little Americano.
All right. I got a story that I want to ask you guys about that I heard. This is dynamite for DUIs. And I'm not condoning this by any means, but I feel like we got to put it out there and see how this would work. So what I was told is, say you had a few beers and you got behind the wheel, which we don't want anybody to do, but you keep a bottle of vodka underneath your seat of your front seat while you're driving, but you empty out all the vodka, fill it with this much water, so it's clear. And if you get pulled over, you immediately get out of the car, shut it off, throw the keys off to the side, get out so they can see you, chug the water outside the car while the cop's coming up to arrest you. And if you do that, you get an open container and maybe a public
Disorderly conduct.
but
You're definitely getting tased.
But do you think you guys could defend that?
I think you're getting a DUI regardless.
Because say they do what they were saying is your blood alcohol is going to be still high, right?
Yeah.
But they can't prove that it wasn't from you chugging the vodka that they could see on tape.
They're going to be like, yeah, but
Any thoughts?
You chugged the first half of it prior to driving, and you just down the last half trying to get rid of evidence on tape. A
I
similar
always wondered.
a similar kind of theory. And now there was
Whoa now, Luke. Whoa now.
So I think their answer is no. That's not as brilliant as you always thought it was.
generally,
Could you?
I knew a lawyer who would get into a wreck because he was a chronic drunk, and he would, if he could do it close enough to his house, he would just walk. Now that's leaving the scene of an accident. And then cops would see this lawyer's car, know it, run the plates, go right to his house.
You parked the
Ding dong. They go to the door, and he's like, he's got a liquor drink. He's like, hey. A deer just jumped out in front of me, and I got so shooken up, I had to have me a couple of Jack Daniels. Now that you're showing impairment after the fact,
right?
So they're gonna want to take you in and get your breath sample, but you're like, well, I was shooken up by the deer. I mean, what you want me to do? Not have a drink? And so it's after the fact, but like that could be successful. But generally, good DUI advice is be polite, be respectful, do not answer questions about drinking. Do not do any field sobriety. Be polite.
Politely decline.
Oh yeah,
field
how does
sobriety.
that? Yeah, how do you do that? So they come up and they say, "Have you had a few drinks tonight?" You just say,
No.
"Oh, you say no."
You can say no.
I thought you just say silent.
just not
How does
speaking.
it? I
Just like-
can't speak.
So if you politely remain silent, am I being, stopped? Am I being charged with something? Well, I'm investigating you for driving under the influence, sir. Well,
That's strange.
step out of the car here, please. And then you're gonna politely decline that. And the best way to say it,
Really?
if you can remember, yep. Now,
You're allowed to?
That'll make it
At that
cops
See, these are
furious.
things we don't know we're
At
allowed
that
to
point,
do.
they don't tell you that you're allowed to decline that. They're just like, step out of the car.
And you can
Right.
you can just say, listen, I've heard that kind of testing is pretty subjective.
Or you can be like, I've got a police officer buddy who tells me this is bullshit. Or just you could be like, he tells me not to do this. So,
So
I
then,
understand. You're
so
just
if you
doing
haven't admitted to anything to drink, and they're always going to say when they pull you over, smell alcohol about his breath in person. That's their cop speak for how they write that up. And glassy eyes and slurred speech, unsteady on his feet. So decline the balance and coordination test that anybody in the middle of the night with 4 or 5 cop cars around you, blue lights and cars whizzing by, you're not going to want to do that.
Right.
Politely decline that. You're getting handcuffed.
Oh, you're going to jail. It doesn't matter.
But they haven't. Then they don't have any evidence on the side of the road. And let's say they pull you over for speeding. Okay, fine. I sped like all day today, all the way to federal prison and back. Bzzz,
Yep.
trying to get here for this pot. And then when they take you down to the data master room, the breath test, because we don't have mobile anything like that.
Oh, they
So-
No mobile breathalyzers. I've
Not in
heard
South
that,
Carolina.
and that's insane.
Right. So they're going to take you to a jail and they're
Yeah.
going to handcuff you to a bar and say, blow in this tube, dude. And you're like, no.
No, thank you.
And you're being video recorded, so
Don't piss yourself. Don't
Don't-
vomit.
Don't just
Good
keep
point.
it together. Keep it
Good
together
point.
for 20
He gets a little
minutes.
car sick.
Keep it together, and then
The cop on the way there is just swerving.
and then they will have. I hate having repeat clients of that nature. But when they call back in, they're like, oh, like literally, I got hired on a guy last week. That's the 6th time we've represented him on a DUI.
Gosh.
But guess what? He didn't say anything. He didn't do any tests, either on the side of the road or in the data master room, and he even acted a little indignant about how dare they. And I said, all right, dude, we're going to take care of this one too.
Wow.
I'm just like, come on, man.
Dang.
So eventually they take a blood test.
Nope. Only if it's a felony DUI. So
Like if you hit somebody.
if you hurt
someone's
somebody,
hurt,
they can draw your blood.
Okay.
Or you
then-
kill someone, they can draw your blood. But just your average DUI, they can't take your blood.
So if
if
you're
you damage property, like if you run into somebody's house,
Nope.
can't they
Not
can't
unless
do
that
it.
person is hurt.
Like unless there has to be a person hurt. Wow, this is.
I don't. I
mean, I don't know if we should be telling people
Doesn't
this.
even make sense to me. All right. So
So
how do
just
they find out your blood alcohol level, or they can't?
if they don't have it, then that's a good case to be defended, right?
So you just stay a night in jail.
So they try to incentivize you giving it. So your license gets suspended if you refuse. But if you blow above a 0.15 or higher, it's going to get suspended anyway for a short amount of time.
And then we can have you driving on a different license within 24 hours after the arrest.
Really?
Yeah, it's called a temporary alcohol license.
The USA is unbelievable.
that is wild.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Lawyers are the ones making all these laws. And lawyers
Right.
like to go out to dinner and have a couple glasses
Right.
of wine. And then they're going to want to drive home. Doctors like to do it. All the people in power like to go to that fancy dinner at Ruth Chris.
Have a
Have
couple
a couple
cocktails.
drinks. And, you know, the law is, you see, I mean, I'm not an advocate for
Wait,
being
Ruth Chris?
reckless.
Halls.
Whatever.
Halls.
Wherever the people want to go that have
I
money.
think we're
wanna
friends
spend
on
it.
social media with Halls now, so we're going to talk
Okay,
about
Halls.
Halls.
Halls is the place to get your steak and cocktails.
I
Everybody.
do, and I legitimately love Halls.
So good. I like how
So
they
good.
when they bring the food, it's like 10 people coming
Yeah.
all at one time. You feel like
Yeah.
a king.
Yep.
But it's not illegal to have a drink and drive. It's illegal to be materially and appreciably impaired and drive. Whatever
Right.
that. And that's different for you.
Right.
Than it is for Hannah, than me.
Hey, Hannah.
Hey, Hannah.
She's here, but not on the show. It's really weird, right?
Yeah, Hannah. Maybe tell.
We had a
we
mic
keep
for
hearing
her.
references to Hannah. Maybe tell people
She's
who Hannah is.
Donna from Suits for these guys.
Oh yeah,
Hannah's the smart one.
yeah.
Yes.
She saw. Do you guys have a private investigator, like somebody that you? Is that
Yeah.
Hannah?
It could be.
She comes from a long line of private investigator pedigree.
She's perfect with us.
creeping.
Her dad is a criminal defense lawyer, and her mom was a private investigator, and so she was really
Nice.
meant to be somewhere in this field, but instead she just
We're going
is
to corrupt her one day, and she'll be working in a different capacity for us.
with us.
With us.
There you go.
But we do have an in-house investigator who's currently on paternity leave,
Paternity.
which is leaving us a little short-handed right now. So
What's your guys' process like day one? Do you have a formula that you or like a setup of questions that you ask somebody, or is it kind of just you show up with a blank notepad and
It
Tell them
depends
to
on the
stop
case.
talking.
I mean,
you just walk in and say, "Stop talking."
I mean,
You say
a-
that's enough right
a
there.
murder case, we're going to tell that person about our experiences, about our track record. We're going to know some things about if did you give a statement, did you not? Are there witnesses? Are there
we'll try to figure
co-defendants?
out what police know at that point or
Right,
what they
right.
think they
But-
know.
But
we
we're
can-
not having that whole thing. Now, if it's a DUI client, we can have a little more of an open discussion about, you know, how you looking, what's going on, did you fall over, you know, in the data master room? I got a call last week for a guy that blew .21, which is pretty high, but he hit a cop car and a cop in it. And I was like, ooh, that's good information
Yeah.
to know.
yeah?
So I kind of want
You might want to tweet that one
legal
out.
fee was like, bzzz. I was like, whoa.
But you know, there's sometimes, even though we kind of play this finally walk game of not getting them to pour out their souls to us, there could be certain investigative tasks that need to be done now. So if they've already given a statement saying I was at this truck stop 10 miles away from the murder or crime scene, then we need to go to the truck stop, get the surveillance video. If there's any chance that there's an alibi, we need to pull his cell phone, figure out what is his GPS data doing, what kind of texts is he making. Just get a lot of evidence before it disappears. Whether we end up going that route or not, based on the full picture, there's certain things we have to do quickly. So a lot of times it's figuring that out and also figuring out basic client goals.
The other thing is the state system and the federal system are so different, completely different engines. I mean, one's diesel and one's gas. I mean, like the federal system moves so quickly, it may be in our client's best interest before we even get the evidence to go cooperate. The federal cases are built so much differently. They're real cases, years of investigation, wiretaps. I mean, we once had a multi-state drug client, federal client, and he called me up and he was like, yeah, I just got like totally busted for all the spice I was making in my house, but they didn't arrest me. I was like, oh, they did not arrest you. They just took all your drugs and everything and your whole operation from your basement. He was like, yeah. I was like, uh-oh. And I was like, did you know I leave you a card? He's like, yeah, I got this card from this agent out of Texas. I was like, uh-oh. And so I call it up and he's like, you're going to want to meet me. And so 30 minutes, he had his laptop out, this federal agent out of Texas, and he was like, here's your boy. And he literally has a PowerPoint of the past 2 years of our guy, like surveilled, wiretapped, he mixing it in his basement, like doing all this stuff, like putting things in the post office. He's like, your guy's life's over in these 15 slides. And here's the law, here's the exposure, but we just really want his help because he's taking this stuff that's clearly killing people and really bad, but he's laundering it through these labs that are really the bad guys.
Right.
It was like Project White Whale is what it was called. Of course, whenever it has a crazy name, you're like, oh, that's White Whale. So then we're like, oh, so they didn't arrest him because they want us help with these labs that are like printing out this as like incense and selling it to all these shops, and it's like getting people really, really high or killing them. And we want the labs. So that was White Whale, but I was just like blown away by the level of investigative effort on a federal case. Yeah. At state level, it's just like sometimes just some cop is like, I got a hunch. And you're like, oh, I'll take your hunch and I'll smash it with my hammer. But like the federal system's different. So
lay of the land does matter.
Yeah. So if you're taking because all that stuff that you're talking about DUI, I had no clue. And I'm sure you take all kinds of different cases from all across. Like you wake up one day and you don't know what you're going to hear, what you're going to see.
No idea.
And there's got to be some that you're like, I'm not taking this case. Or this guy's lying to me and I don't feel right about it and I'm not going to do it. Or do you, as you know, professionally, you take the cases because everybody deserves the right to a good defense?
Yes and no. We do more than others. We believe that everybody, the worst of the worst, deserve the best possible defense because it's a slippery slope. Like if the heinous, really bad folks who are poor and terrible and just have everything up against them, if they aren't being vigorously defended, then when you're a really innocent person, has a similar charge, but no one gave a crap about the first guy, you start not giving a crap about this person. Pretty much your whole system is upended. But so we take the worst of the worst murders. We take some of the most horrific, child sex cases and other things like that. The only people that we don't take, if they come in just unreasonable and just like barking orders, we got a few of the January 6er calls and we declined to take their cases.
Oh, yeah.
So I think those are the only ones on like a principle that we're like, nah.
I mean, we defend the Constitution so vigorously. I mean, he's a little more hardline than I would be. Like, I'd probably take it. But like when they start barking orders about what they want and they don't know anything about the law, certain personalities we just we either decline or we quote such a high legal fee that we know it's not going to be.
You hope it goes
realistic.
away.
And every now and then we get surprised. Like, oh my God, I cannot believe they came up with that. Like, it's crazy. So,
Not it.
Hot potato.
How many cases are you guys working on at a time?
We have associates that help us on the smaller cases. And this, then we've got 10-year-old murder cases. And so that guy will call in like once every 4 months. And that's not really, so there's active cases that are really hopping.
Yeah.
And then there's back burner cases. I'd say probably the active cases that are real attention grabs.
Like in the current 6-month period, might be like 75, 100. Like constant work?
No, not that many. The ones that we are...
As a firm or like you and me individually?
You and me.
50.
25 each?
Feels more than that.
So, I mean...
What's like the typical length of those? Or are they all different? Like, are some solved in a week?
Some can get knocked out pretty quickly. Got a crazy investigation going currently that involves a private polygraph that we're working on that I'll get knocked out really quick. That's a really serious allegation. I've already got a lot of stuff, alleged victim, social media that discredits her completely, family statements, school records, and then the internal polygraph will be the cherry on top of that Sunday, and that should go away real quick. But some are massive. I mean, we talked to a guy today that's got a double murder in Charleston with a trial date in December that's going to have to get continued, and so that could be a 6-month thing. But
we have a homicide by child abuse at the end of the month. It's like a 3-year-old case. I mean, it's a culmination of tons of.
And the other thing is too
evidence.
is you can't just go full tilt boogie all day long on these cases. So you have to kind of have these action items and kind of get them going. Send a subpoena here. Send my investigator to talk to these 5 people. And you got to do like, boom, a little blast of energy. And you kind of do the same thing with another case while that's going. And then things are kind of coming back. And then you have to kind of organized and focused. And then, I mean, really, it's a lot of client management. It's a lot of investigation, and then really fine tuning the evidence, because the prosecutors just sit on stuff. It's not like not all the prosecutors are like, I'm gonna make sure that this defense lawyer doesn't have this, but they're just like lazy, or it's just like, I didn't really look for this piece of evidence. Oh, okay. And so half the time we're only like really getting gnarly with a case a month before a trial, which is kind of like this homicide by child abuse case. It's really starting to heat up.
I was going to ask about the associates that are, because you have associates that are helping you with your cases, right? So you have these younger lawyers that are coming out of school right now.
They hate us, absolutely hate us.
No. Well, I hear a lot that this next generation coming out is pretty soft.
And see a lot of that.
And
I hear a lot of that. We see a lot
of it in the chiropractic world for sure.
How old are you guys?
Almost 40.
Almost 40.
All right, so we're 45. So we're of a similar age. I agree with that. I will agree with that.
We won't disagree with it.
They're coming out of school with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and saying, I don't want to work Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and if you can have me not work Mondays, that would be helpful too. As like, what day? Let's maybe say what day can you work? And they're like, well, I could do Tuesdays from 12 to 4.
We've noticed that folks like that, the lawyers as well, who are right out of school, for whatever reason, expect a perfect work-life balance immediately.
Right.
And people, when they know what we do, we heavy hitting criminal defense, and we sue cops, and we do some personal use. We do tough stuff. It's not like
we worked our entire weekend. It was our 45th birthday last weekend. We didn't do anything except work because we had a trial, and the client's going to go to prison unless we put in all that time. And it's just the way it is. Now, we did have one of our associates working foot for foot with us. Thank you, Julia. She's great, but
she's furious that she worked all weekend long with you.
But she's an exception to the rule. And then Michaela worked, of course, the entire time, waiting on her bar results. But we have had some folks as well, and just general observations. Not Hannah, of course. She's an old soul in like a young person's body, but we've noticed it, and I don't know how to explain it.
So I'm curious, this is just me personally, like how are you weeding that out in interviews, or what questions are you asking, or how many chances do you give, or what
in the interviews we're like, listen, this is real. Like we screw up here, people go to prison.
Yes.
Right. And so like don't come in here, and we tell horror stories, and we tell war stories, and we tell about difficult periods we've experienced, and some people are like, okay, you're right, I probably shouldn't be here. Like, get out of here. So that's one way to weed them out. And then some of them are like, I really would like to work here. I think you guys are doing what I think is good. And then they'll get in and be like, oh my God, it's too difficult.
We've been burned a couple times lately because of me. I've been.
This is terrible.
It's not terrible.
I guarantee you guys don't do this.
I've been politely suggesting that an applicant for whatever position do like a personality test.
You don't do this.
Brian,
we 100% do.
Yeah, we do it with everybody.
We do.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
look at these guys.
Okay.
See,
We do some weird stuff in interviews. You can ask Brett.
these guys are successful. They know what's up. So lately,
Are they successful because they have padded walls? And
they've got a podcast.
We have a podcast.
We're Columbia's hottest chiropractors too.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, the face and the hair and the teeth. I mean,
So right. See. So anyway, we've been doing that lately. And
Randy asks our interviews, how much do you think I can bench press? Is it more or less than 200 pounds? That's a part of
I do ask part of that.
That's a part of our interview process.
But here's why. Let me explain why. Well, I am always curious because he can, but barely, and hurts himself. But pretty quickly if a person's like socially comfortable or uncomfortable based on how they answer that question. So sometimes someone will say, they'll look at him, they'll be like, oh, I bet he can do more than that. Look at how big his arm. Like, they joke with him. And then it's like, all right, this person kind of understands it was a joke. So we had one person who just stared at his arms up and down for the most uncomfortable minute of my life.
Dead silent. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do.
I mean, is that a short sleeve day when you're asking that question?
He's there playing. He's given these.
But it went on way too long.
Way too long. And then just looks him dead in the eyes and goes, nope.
And you're pre-fired. Is that
I believe he wasn't hired.
Now, do you guys use ChatGPT a lot now? I was thinking for like when you're writing closing arguments or anything like that, you can just pop it in and.
We haven't, but I think
the
Julia.
AI?
Yeah.
Yes.
The other day, Julia, I'll say her name again. She was stressing. Was it her?
I think it was Hope.
Oh, it was Hope. We were working with a young lawyer who just it was on that case we were diving for a gun. It was her first trial. She did an excellent job, by the way.
Excellent, Hope. Excellent.
But she just played around when she was stressing about an opening and what to say, and it just kind of printed out this really pretty good opening.
Yeah.
And she was like, man, she didn't use it, I don't think, but like it was fascinating. No, we have not done that. Maybe we should.
Might get better results.
Subpoena, like you could just get a subpoena together with 4 keywords, probably.
Beep, 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 beep. Well, yeah, those aren't that hard.
Now, are you guys ever worried about your safety? I was thinking about that.
We've been not by our clients. That's what everyone thinks. Like, oh,
You're
we
working.
got murder clients and big bad people.
Right.
Like,
Yes, you're in the you walk in the room and say, "Take the cuffs off them," right away.
yeah, they're our people.
Yeah.
They know. I mean, a lot of lawyers who don't have good relationships maybe are fearful of their clients, but we never been concerned about our clients unless they're really mentally ill. Now, we have been attacked by alleged victim family members, especially on murder cases, attacked us in the courtroom, parking lot.
Physically?
We tried quite hard.
What kind of moves do you guys have?
Run pretty quick. I remember we had a really bad double murder in December that when we got into that case, we've got one of our best friends is a public defender, and she keeps on asking us to do these free cases. And we love her to death. And we're like, okay, Laura. And usually it's over a glass of wine at our favorite bar, Goat Feathers. And she'll be like, oh, I got the perfect self-defense case for you guys. And she'll tell us about it. And we're like, oh.
And this would be because
You're like,
she
okay.
really believes this person is.
Oh, she believes
is-
everybody. But
yeah, okay.
but I remember that bond setting, they came, 2 or 3 came running down at us at the bond setting. And Judge Price had to cancel the bond setting. I remember that. And then we...
he granted it, but then he ran off the bench.
well, no, it got canceled for lunch break. They cleared the courtroom, and then he granted it.
Oh, okay. I just remember folks running down.
That lady that I was telling you about, our client that took the 5-year deal, that guy's family that she had to kill to save her life were
Shoulder checked in the hall.
we got in the hallway, and then there was one where our client was that the one we got taken down the judge's elevator? Was that Anthony or was that Brittany?
That was Anthony.
So Anthony was a guy that we won a jury trial where he stabbed a guy 18 times in a moving vehicle in self-defense. It was this high school bully. And he was with his brother's wife. His brother had been deployed, and he was just going out with her. And she was picking up a girlfriend, and that girlfriend brought these 2 dudes. And these 2 dudes happened to be really bad guys. And one of them had beaten up our fairly nerdy friend a couple of years back in high school, and he was upset about it because our guy called the cops then. So basically, there's some physical stuff going on from the back seat. Our guy's calling the cops, and our guy was 100 pounds soaking wet. He was in I remember we were prepping his case for trial. He was a guy that was always picked on, and just captain of the chess team,
Right?
And, marching band, and looked a little weird, and he was wearing this Angry Birds T-shirt, and I was preparing him for that moment when he was calling the cops, and he saw that gun being drawn to the side of his head, and how it made him feel, and he was like, I was gonna defend myself, and I was like, all right, Angry Birds, because he had this T-shirt. I was like, no, you were scared. That's why you pulled out your little pocket knife when he said he was gonna kill you and your family because he knows where they live and he's tired of all your stuff.
Right.
And you literally wrestled the gun away, and you got into a stabbing match with an 1.5-inch blade, and nicked his artery, and he died. But during that trial, when we won that, the courtroom went crazy. Wow. Chairs being thrown, everything was going crazy, and we had to get my pregnant wife was there. This was 2014, so
That's wild.
my oldest daughter's 9 year. I had this great deputy. He was a courthouse deputy, Cooper. I was like, get her out of this courthouse. But we had to get escorted out of the judge's private elevator, which we're not even supposed to really know about in the courthouse.
Probably the scariest I've ever
everybody
been
does.
was when we were investigating a murder case and all the evidence kept pointing towards a police officer as being the guy that actually did the murder. And we had to present that defense. That was where all of our evidence led. And it wasn't like we weren't happy about it. I started carrying a gun all the time. And we had to go through that public courtroom and present the evidence.
That was really scary.
That infuriated the judge and the prosecutor. And I think that police officer was there, of course, because I'm not going to say his name, and he has continued to be promoted very high in the Midlands area. But like, they called him to the stand, and we had to ask him if he wanted an attorney before he answered the questions, and like
had to Mirandize him.
Dang.
Wow. Well, our buddy did. We were trying this case with our friend who's no longer. Well, he's back in. He went to be a prosecutor for a while, but it was pretty intense. That was scary because
you just never know. And it was not like just a rumor. We had credible evidence that
we had
presented.
3 witnesses that said this guy told the victim the night that she died, she was strangled, that he's come to kill her.
And we had other stuff, video and all kinds of stuff. I don't want to like reopen that old wound, but that was when I started carrying a gun nonstop.
Yeah.
I've got 2 in my pocket right now. What's your concealed weapons?
That's great. How about after a win? Do you guys have any celebrations that you guys do? I imagine your wives just can't keep their hands off you. You just go home, you say, hey.
It's such the opposite. It's such the opposite. I mean, our wives are like,
don't care.
I've been dealing with the kids for 2 weeks. Get home. My wife will like, all right, you can go play. And she'll normally join me. We'll go to our favorite local bar, Goat Feathers, in 5 Points with the best bartender in town, Opie, Orlando Patterson.
Yep.
And we'll just celebrate. It's like a criminal defense bar, and everyone's normally like knows about a case, what's happening, and we'll just kind of usually.
Are we allowed?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to go there?
Sure. It's the coolest bar.
We gotta wear a suit and tie.
No.
maybe?
No.
All right.
We have some.
We'll
I've never
you
been
in.
there.
We'll
Yeah.
get you in.
We just drop your guys' names now.
We have Dirk there. We own some art that's on the wall. Some finely curated
And
art.
you guys don't have a special hand, like a twin handshake or anything like you
We actually do.
We do.
You do? Oh, let's see it. This is great.
Sometimes, if we really want to upset a prosecutor, we'll do this in court. We can't.
I knew there had to be.
So we had, so for like a really uptight prosecutor, and one comes to mind, we had an attempted murder trial. It was actually the guy that wanted to do his time in Saluda, who was going to get all, he loved that Saluda County jail.
Shealey.
We were meeting with the judge, and we were waiting on the judge, and she's like, it's like, what's your deal? Like, you guys think you're going to do X, Y, Z in trial? We're like, yeah, we are. And then like, Luke's going to be crossing up your cop, and then I'm going to tag out, and we're going to tag out like this.
We're going to do this handshake.
And she was like, you can't do that in court. And we're like, yeah, we do it all the time. And we wanted to tell her, like, you got to get on Lexington more.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Last thing I was wondering about is we do a lot of like personal injury. You guys do personal injury stuff?
Yeah.
What on the medical side, what are things that we should be like, what should we do to make it simple for you guys to just like, we don't take on cases anymore that don't have lawyers. Number one, that's always our policy. And so we just want to know what's a simple way to make sure that it just goes smoothly.
Or you can do it the opposite way too, of your pet peeves that you get.
Or
from
yeah,
medical.
And we kind of, in our shop, are kind of up here, and we're lots into the criminal cases, but we have such an exceptional civil side that we kind of jump in as they get closer to a meaningful point. But our clients are just not great all the time with like, once the treatment's done, like notifying us like right away. So, I mean, honestly, if we even knew from a provider, like, oh, they're done with treatment and everything's good, like just a phone call or like an email,
right?
That would really be good.
I would like a picture of agony of the client. Day one. Oh, snapshot. The picture speaks 1,000 words. So
I mean, that's actually interesting. Like range of motion pictures. Like we started like this, and then we got them like that. But But
good.
I mean, honestly, knowing when treatment's over before the client gets around telling us
Do you
stuff,
guys know any good chiropractors that we should be sending our clients to see that might need help getting well again?
Well, it's funny because I've talked whenever I'll call and talk to a lawyer about a case, or if someone comes in and I'll call and talk to them. They're generally pretty nice and don't ask like a ton of, they're just very cordial and whatever. But I'm usually leave the call being like, are they happy that I called? Were they like, why is this guy calling me, or why is he telling me stuff that I don't care about?
But this location is great. But we sat for 15 minutes for a train to come by.
Yeah.
And then there was a fake train. So like it let the arm went up, and then it was like, just kidding.
Jukes you out.
No
yeah.
way.
It came back
Yeah,
down
I've seen
again.
that.
There was no train. We're like, what? So we ended up going around a couple blocks up to, but
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, we have 3 locations.
oh, well,
So 2 of them, no trains, right?
I don't think there's
you're-
any trains in Forest Acres.
Good on trains
Oh, yeah,
over there.
no trains
yeah.
over there.
Yeah, nice.
So you got Forest Acres, and what are the others?
One's, where Inakaya is on O'Neill
DMV.
Court?
Yeah.
DMV.
yeah.
That's us in there too, yeah. That's the OG, that's the original one.
Nice.
Yeah. What? And then maybe tell how people can find you, or what the best means to get a hold of you is.
we'll have like a signal, right?
There's a lot of cards going around local jails now. The internet is a good way to find us.
Catch us on
Telephone.
Podcasts.
our podcast.
You guys got to hype your podcast. You got to hype your Instagram.
I mean-
Personal Instagram. Do you guys roll personal Instagrams pretty heavy?
Not really. I mean, Hannah helps us with our Shealey Law stuff, but we got the Insta, we've got the Twitter, we've got the
Twitter.
Facebook,
Twitter.
Yeah.
we've got the TikTok, and the YouTube. YouTube is blowing up.
And the MySpace.
MySpace.
You guys what? No MySpace?
MySpace. My
I
wife.
still have mine active.
The way that my wife hooked me is through MySpace.
Really?
Yep.
Would she poke you?
No, for sure.
She's like, "What's your bitch?"
Like she saw my favorite meal on there was lasagna, and just started constantly coming around saying like, I'm making lasagna tonight, want to come over? And I'm sure.
Nice.
But you could only have 8. I think in MySpace you had to have 8 friends. Or you could only have 8 top friends. Like you had to rank your friends. So you
There's
like
only
the
a
most.
certain amount.
Is that why that model was so successful?
I
8
know,
friends. That's it.
That's all there was. And then everybody had that one friend who hacked the system, and he was automatically put on there.
They're
Yeah,
like
people missed out on MySpace.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom.
Tom.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, everybody, we appreciate you guys being on here.
We've enjoyed
this is
it.
Awesome. Everybody, go check them out. All their TikToks and Twitters and Instagrams. Thanks for being on.
Yeah,
All
that's
right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We're here for the health of it.
For the health of it.